Yep, just about on.
A lot of recording work. They front their own groups. They are sensational saxophone players. So tonight we're going to feature Pete Chrisley and Ernie Watts. Gentlemen.
There you go. Can you hear that, Ernie?
Pete Chrisley and Ernie Watts. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Ernie. Boy, that's good.
Oh, boy. Those were the days. Those were cool days, man.
That was the last full-size big.
Sorry, it was the last full-size band that.
The last full-size big band on TV.
Wow.
Yeah, because after that, Johnny retired,
Yeah.
and the next band came on, and it was a seven-piece band. And after that, all of these bands for all of these nighttime shows have been like 6 or 7-piece bands. So it was a very nice thing to be a part of that, you know.
Were you actually a part of the band?
I was there from 1971 to 1991. So I was a member of that band when they moved from New York to LA. I started doing it full time. Before that time, they would come to LA for 2 or 3 weeks at a time from New York, and I started doing it then because I was on staff at NBC. I
Oh,
did the last 4 years of the staff orchestra they had at NBC, and that the original band that played when Johnny would come out from New York, it was a variation of Louis Belson's band,
mm.
and I was playing with Louis at that time too, Louis and Pete and I. So it kind of grew out of that. So when they moved from New York to L.A. full time, I started doing the Tonight Show full time at that time. Yeah.
What a great time. That period of time was just so great, music wise, right?
Yeah, there was all kinds of things going on in LA. It was like when I look back on it, it was sort of like a golden time in LA. I moved to LA in 1968
Yeah.
and came to LA from Buddy Rich's band. I had been with Buddy Rich's band for about 2 years, and we were in LA. We did a summer replacement show with Buddy's band, a summer replacement show for at NBC for the Jackie Gleason show, and we were on for 13 weeks. It was called the Away We Go show. And it was Buddy Rich's band, Buddy Greco, and George Carlin was the comedian.
Good. Oh my God.
Yeah, LA. And then when I left
Wow.
Buddy's band, I decided to move to LA because I had started working there.
Yeah. And LA was probably so busy at that time, right? You probably had a
Yeah, I
lot
started
to
out as a
do.
sub. I started out as a substitute for Bill Green and Buddy Collette and Bud Shank and people like that. The guys that were already established in LA, they were so busy, they couldn't do all their work, you know. So I would substitute for them. I'd do a rehearsal for them or a sound check for them until they showed up. And then from doing sub work for them, I started getting my own work. I started doing my own work. And so it all evolved that way.
That's so cool. And what listening to you and Pete Crisley, oh my God, that's just like my brain was on fire. It was like, wow, this is so cool, man.
Yeah, we got together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's such a great guy, and
Great,
yeah,
great,
his playing.
great, great player. Yeah.
My other friend, my old friend who you probably played with in those bands was Andy McIntosh,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep, he was a really great alto player.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. We have a few people here saying hi. Dan Davila, who he's he usually gives me there's a site called All Music. I don't know if you're that familiar with it. Maybe Patricia does this for you, but so it lists credits, and usually it's pretty accurate. Sometimes it's some, like some photographer named Ernie Watts or something,
Uh,
but
no,
could happen. Anyway, he said most credits I've ever seen for your guest, a total of 1,600
mm-hmm.
credits. That's a lot.
Hmm.
And Roland Ascarons, he said you're one of his top sax heroes. Oh, and he used to go to Dante's.
Oh yeah, I used to work at Dante's every Tuesday night. And then after that, I started working at the Baked Potato every Tuesday night with Lee Rittenauer and Dave Grusin and Harvey Mason and Abraham Laboriel. And we played there for a couple of years. And then we started touring as a group too.
Uh, what group was that? What was the title? Was it there a name of the group?
It was Lee's project, but we called it Friendship. And
Oh
we did
yeah.
a bunch excuse me, we did a bunch of direct to disc projects for JVC in Japan.
Try to drink some.
And so then we started going to Japan, and then that became a thing.
Definitely.
Direct to disc was very difficult to do, though.
Yeah, really? Why?
You had to do the whole side in one take.
Oh, okay.
If you had five tunes on a side,
Oh,
and you were going along, and you got to the third tune on the side, and then a cymbal got knocked over or something happened, you had to go back and start the whole side again.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Mm, that's like the good and the bad. I guess good because you get to play the song again, but the bad you get really tired
The thing
probably.
is, by the time you got a take that they could keep, you had played it so many times that you didn't really want to play it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
John March, who's a wonderful guitarist, he said he's a huge fan and that you guys have met casually a few times, and he was too shy to say anything. But you did meet him when he was young at the Tonight Show because his father was friends with Doc.
Oh, okay.
Um, let's see, over the years, I'd hoped to meet you as Rev Dave, and those guys are pals of mine. Someday, when you're in Colorado, he wants to meet you.
Great. Well, we go in and out of Colorado.
Yeah, John March, he's a very cool guy. Great guitar player too.
Mm.
So, um, I like to kind of improvise with guests because I don't like the same old thing all the time. But I am curious how you came up, um, like where you were born. Were you playing sax right away, or did you pick up a different instrument?
I was born in Virginia,
Oh, okay.
but I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh,
My dad worked for Chrysler. So what happened was I was a baby and my mom and dad moved to Detroit. I guess we were part of what they now gracefully call the Great Migration.
yeah,
Where all the people of color went from the South to the North to get jobs.
right.
My dad went to, we went to Detroit. My dad got a job working at Chrysler.
Okay.
After that, Chrysler opened a factory in Delaware, in Newark, Delaware. And my dad asked my dad to come if he wanted to come there, and he said that would be great because then our family, our family roots are in Virginia and North Carolina. It would bring him closer to his family, and so we moved to Delaware when I was about 11, and a year or so later, when I was like 12 and a half, 13, I started playing saxophone in Wilmington, Delaware as part of the school system. I was just a kid. Uh, I was with a friend of mine. It was the beginning of a school semester. He wanted to learn to play the saxophone. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was busy in the art department of the school, painting and drawing and doing things like that. I figured I'd go with him to the music department on a lunch break. He asked for a saxophone. He got a saxophone. I figured I'd try trombone, probably because I'd seen the Glenn Miller story on TV or something that week.
Right.
Uh, it turned out the school was all out of saxophones, and I mean all out of trombones. The
Oh,
school was all out of trombones. So I got a baritone saxophone because I was tall for my age, and the teacher figured I could carry it in marching band.
of course. I love
So
these stories. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
and I played the saxophone. So I liked it immediately, and I sort of gravitated towards that. And I was always sort of self-driven, self-motivated. So I started practicing, and I started learning to play the instrument in between, my home practicing and my teacher at the school. Uh, I started to grow. The school didn't have a jazz program; they only had a classical music program. So I was learning to play the saxophone, what you would say, quote unquote, correctly, embouchure, fingering, pitch, and all of those kind of things. And I started learning to play jazz by ear. I had a neighbor that had this great jazz collection. I don't know if you're familiar with the East Coast, but the houses are like we call them townhouses now. We used to call them row houses in
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Maryland, Pennsylvania, all that. The houses were in rows. My
Yeah.
next door neighbor could hear me practicing, so he started to lend me records, and I started to learn how to play jazz by ear. And then I I started taking private saxophone lessons, still classical.
Yeah.
The neighbor would take me to concerts. Uh, the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, that whole area in the late 50s and early 60s, they had all these amusement parks that had these great big ballrooms, like in
Oh, yeah. Right.
there's a Riverview Park. There were all of these parks. There was Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. And what would happen is on the weekends, they'd have these big dances, and all the bands would come and play at these dances. So my friend would take me to hear Count Basie's band, Duke Ellington's band, Maynard Ferguson, Stan Kenton, Woody Herman, all of these all of these bands I heard when I was a kid in high school because they did these dances. And the people would come, fill up the dance hall, and then all the music kids, everybody that was interested in music would stand up near the bandstand and listen to the players, you
Yeah.
know. And that's how I started listening and learning about this music, and studying privately. So I was always practicing. I've always been a practicer. I'm still a practicer, and so it sort of evolved to where I was playing with all the bands in all of my high school bands and stuff in the area. All of the other teachers knew I was playing. Uh, my sister, who was a little younger than me, she said, yeah, she would look in my closet, and I had band uniforms from every high school band. Yeah. And I do parades with them, and I do concerts with them, and all of that kind of thing. So I went
Wow.
through.
You were working like right away.
Yeah, I started doing gigs when I was 16.
Yeah.
I let my mustache grow in, and I looked like I was older, and I started doing these organ bands and clubs and stuff, and they didn't know I was 16 or 17, and I'm playing in all these places. Uh, One of my first summertime gigs was in Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, and I was playing there with an organ band, and the organ was in the middle of the bar. The bandstand was in the middle of the bar. You crawl under the bar and you go up these steps, and then there was this bandstand above the bar, and we were standing there, and all of these people were hanging out and partying all weekend at this bar. So I started doing that kind of stuff as a kid, and they let me because they couldn't figure out. I must have been older than I was because I could play. They couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wasn't a certain age, I wouldn't have been able to play the way I was playing. But
Yeah.
so I slipped one over on them, and it just sort of evolved that way. I graduated from high school. I told my mother I wanted to be a musician. She just about dropped dead on the floor. So after we got mom resuscitated, she says, well, I know you want to be a musician, but why don't you go to the school and get your teacher's degree, and then you'll have something to fall back on. So when I graduated from high school, I went to Westchester State Teachers College in Pennsylvania for a year. I spent half of the year in class and the other half of the year in the practice rooms. I told my mom I couldn't do it, you know, so she understood that. So I dropped out of school, and I was doing some private teaching in Wilmington at the high schools and things like that. Then I won a scholarship to the Berklee School of Music in Boston. I won one of those downbeat scholarships.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the same year I won the downbeat scholarship, um, Alan Broadbent won the piano scholarship
Oh,
from New Zealand. He came over
wow.
from New Zealand on a boat same year. So that's when I met Alan Broadbent.
Wow. What year was that?
That was
60 something, 60.
it must have been like 64, 65.
Yeah.
Then.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's when I met him. I was at Berkeley for a year and a half, and then I joined Buddy Rich's band. Uh,
And
but
Berkeley was so small at that point
it
that
was
it
a
was
house. It used to be. It was originally called the Schillinger House.
right, right.
Big old house, and so they had all the classes there. They had a dorm down the street, about 2 blocks from the school on Newberry Street.
Yeah, I went there in 72 to 75, but I'm thinking where would a house be in that area? It was in that area, right?
It was on. Yeah, it was on Newberry Street.
Oh, it was. So it was a house amongst all the other,
A whole bunch of other houses, and some
yeah,
of them were dorm houses.
yeah.
Then there was a sub shop across the street where we always used to hang out. This place called Sumner's. It was probably gone by the time you got there.
I think so.
Yeah. And then in 1966, Buddy was playing at a place called Lenny's on the Turnpike.
Yeah, I remember
And
that
he
place.
was there, and he had a great alto player in his band named Gene Quill, and he got in a fight with Gene Quill, and Gene quit the band and went to New York. So Phil Wilson had just come to Berkeley. He had been with Woody Herman's band. He just came to Berkeley and started teaching. The manager for Buddy Rich was a friend of his, and he called Berkeley and asked Phil who he would recommend, who was an up and coming kid that he would recommend to come and play with Buddy's band to finish out this gig before they went to New York, and then they'd get a real saxophone player. They'd get an adult. So I went and joined Buddy's band, and I was there, and I was with Buddy Rich for like almost 2 years, about a year and a half. So I tell everybody, I guess he couldn't find a real saxophone. So I was with Buddy Rich for a year and a half, and I recorded 3 albums with Buddy.
Oh, wow.
And that's when we went to LA, and we did this summer replacement show for Jackie Gleason, and that's when after that I left Buddy and I stayed in LA, and that's how I got to LA.
Wow. It really so interesting, like looking back at your life and just seeing the steps and the chances and David Amram says scholarship in hangology. That's what he says. He got a scholarship in hangology because you're
Well,
just hanging with somebody, and then something happens.
yeah, yeah. Just being there,
Yeah.
uh, in a particular place at a particular time, you can't really figure that stuff out. Like
No.
when I was in high school, my mother used to let me stay up on Friday night to watch the Tonight Show because I wanted to watch the musicians. She wouldn't let me do it during the week because I had classes. So Friday night she let me stay up and watch the Tonight Show, and like 3 years later, I was in the band. You know, and there's no way you can figure that stuff out.
No. Your mother sounds really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So all of those things kept happening. 1968, when I moved to LA, all the jazz composers were moving to LA
Oh,
because Hank Mancini had written the score to Peter Gunn. Peter Gunn was a giant TV hit
Yeah.
And so it just spurned this rash of TV detective shows that had jazz scores.
Oh,
Oliver
interesting.
Nelson moved to LA. J.J. Johnson moved to LA.
Hmm.
Benny Golson moved to LA. Tom McIntosh, who was a great, great composer, all these guys moved to LA to write scores for these jazz detective shows. So I met all of them and I started recording and working with them. At that same time, Motown moved from Detroit to LA.
Oh,
And they moved and they started using the RCA Victor studio to do their recording. I started doing horn sections. I started playing in horn sections for all those Motown records. There was an older guy that that started contracting all of that stuff. His name was Ben Barrett, and he contracted all of those Motown things. And I started started just doing all those Motown dates. For the Temps, for Diana Ross, for the Jacksons, the Commodores, all of those people. And that's when I met Marvin Gaye, and recorded stuff with him. So one thing always leads to another.
yeah. You got to be the best you can be, and then kind of ride the wave, right?
Yeah,
And
you
then,
have to be the best you can be, and you have to stay the best you can be, which means that you just work all the time. And when you're not working in the studio, you're practicing. When you're not working on in the studio, you're trying to make yourself stronger on your weaker doubles. I was a doubler, right? So I was playing all the flutes. I was playing clarinet and bass clarinet. I had learned oboe and English horn from
wow.
Joe Viola at Berkeley, so I was playing oboe and English horn and all the saxophones. So you have to keep all of that stuff together
Yeah.
so that when you go to a session, you can pick up the instruments and play them relatively well. So it was a lot of work. It was hard.
Yeah. So, was there a moment in time when you stopped doing that so much? You said you practice still, but was there a moment in time when you kind of, like said, okay, I don't need to practice oboe anymore?
I got to a point where I had a change of priorities. Um, I was thinking about it and thinking about it, thinking about playing uh, jazz more full time and traveling and doing more group type things than doing studio things. And then I met Charlie Hayden in 1983, 84, and he moved out to LA from New York. We started playing together, and he created a group called Quartet West. But before Quartet West, we did several tours with Pat Metheny, and we went to South America. We did a big tour of Japan, these live under the sky concerts for Japan. We also did touring all over the states, and I got a chance to just be focusing and working on playing jazz full time and recognizing that the focus and the energy of that music was really where I was going. Pat was so focused and so creative every day in a continuous way, in a spontaneous way, that it just was what I felt my next step was. And then Charlie started the Quartet West with Alan Broadbent and Billy Higgins originally, and then Lawrence Marable took Billy's place. And we had a group, we had the Quartet West together for 20 some years.
Hmm.
And we did a lot of traveling all over the world. We did a lot of recording, and Charlie liked to do string projects. We did a lot of big string projects where Alan wrote the arrangements, and they were really beautiful things.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that opened the door for me to really want to focus on just playing full time jazz music, improvisational music, rather than playing all the instruments and going into a studio and reading whatever anybody put down
Yeah.
and and doing that. Uh, it was a very good growth period, doing studio work and doing all of that. You learn a lot about the music business. You learn about the craft of music. You learn about being consistent. You learn all of those discipline related things to playing from doing the studios. And then I was just ready to turn the page. That's all.
Yeah.
So I
It's
turned the page.
the idea of ethics has always been intriguing to me, especially when it comes to things like the reflection of ethics in music. I mean, I've told this story before, but the one of the first live jazz concerts that I chose to go to was my sister took me, so I had to be, I don't know, probably like 14 or something, and I went to the Jazz Workshop in Boston
Right,
and saw the Modern Jazz Quartet, and we were
right.
in the front row, and the music, I was totally, I had already been into jazz because my dad was a sax player, but um, the music was beautiful and the guys were so elegant, but the feeling of respect
Mhm.
and I now I think it's kind of the feeling of ethics too, that just totally struck me. I mean, I was changed for life from that concert. It was incredible. So I've always kind of been intrigued with this. I mean, you may not think about ethics, as you're going through your life, but you carry it with you and your focus. It sounds like you had your own personal ethics regarding music and your desire. I mean, you got the rewards for it in the playing, right? I mean, first and foremost.
Well, my first lesson was John Coltrane.
Uh-huh.
First jazz record, my own jazz record. Uh, my neighbor used to lend me records. The first jazz record I listened to that I felt kind of I felt encouraged by was a Dave Brubeck album called Jazz Goes to College. And I heard Paul Desmond play alto, and I could listen to what he played, and I could play what he played in that way. So that was very encouraging to me. I said to myself, "Oh, maybe this jazz thing isn't too hard." Uh, the Christmas after that, my mom joined the Columbia Record Club. She realized I wasn't going to quit, right? She joined, she joined the Columbia Record Club, and she bought me this little record player from the Sears Roebuck catalog. They had this giant catalog, and they had their music called Silvertone. Well, she bought me this record player where the turntable was this box, and then the front came off, and there was a speaker you put over on the other side of the room, and so that made it stereo, right? So then she joins the Columbia Record Club, right? And that was one of those things where you bought a record every month. So she
Yep.
joins the Columbia Record Club and she gets the first Columbia record, right? And it's the freebie. The first one's free, right? She gets the freebie, and the freebie that year, she was looking for an instrumental record. She was looking for something with horns on it because she knew I was playing a horn, you know. So she got this record, and it was Miles Davis, Kind of Blue,
Oh my
right?
God.
That was my this record. So that was like 1958. You can always tell it was 58, 59 because it was a brand new record because that was the one that they were promoting. So it had to be around then. And I heard everybody play. I heard, Miles, beautiful, Cannonball, incredible, Bill Evans, uh, uh, uh,
Was it Paul
Wynton
Chambers or I don't?
Kelly. There were two piano players. Wynton Kelly was on that too. Paul Chambers was on that. And Jimmy Cobb had just taken Philly Joe Jones' place. That was one of Philly's first gigs with Miles.
Oh,
And then the tenor player was Coltrane, John Coltrane. And I'm 13, I'm 14. I don't know anything about chords or scales. I'm learning how to play the saxophone from the Rubank saxophone book. You know, I'm playing classical etudes and things like that so I can play the saxophone and I know what the notes are. But I heard all these guys and they sounded like they had a particular vocabulary, a particular language that they played. And then I heard Coltrane, and he was playing with these guys, and it sounded like it was in another key, but it worked. You know, he had a different way of playing with these guys that was extraordinary, that worked with them, but it didn't sound like them. And so from the time I heard Coltrane play, you know, I called it, I said he was playing in another key. It was the other key. So from the time I heard him play, I just always only wanted to play in the other key, right? So that was what was the seed to starting me to learn about improvisation, chord scales, all of those things. You know, I played by ear all the way through high school, little bands, we played dances, all that stuff. And I played by ear. I had a pretty good ear until the tune changed key, or we got to the bridge, and I had to figure out that change in some sort of way. But when I got to Berkeley, I learned about chord scales, right?
yeah.
And I learned that there's a chord and a scale. There's a scale for every chord. So my formula was, my plan was, if there's a scale for every chord, if I learn all the chord scales, you know, if I learn all the scales for all the chords, then it's impossible for me to make a mistake. It's impossible for me to play a wrong note because I'm playing all the right notes with the scales for the chords. So therefore, if you play the right scale for the chords, then improvisation really becomes an elaborate game of multiple choice. You're always playing the right notes, but you can put them up there, or you can put them over there, or you can put them down there, and it's still the right note, right? So that was the beginning of my journey. And then studying Coltrane and reading and learning about him and listening to him play, I learned that that's what basically he had been perceiving. He had been doing. He had been working with all of these scales, all of these chord scales, basic chord scales for Western harmony. And then after a while, he started working on Middle Eastern scales, Indian scales, ragas, and all of that. But it was still scale oriented. So that's sort of been my little journey, which I'm still on. You know, is finding a way to do what is perceived as a basic thing from another angle, you know. And
That's so
it's a lifetime of work.
It is a lifetime of work. Yeah, there's no ending to it.
No.
Um, wow, I love your description of it. It's great. It is actually the intricate game. What did you say? The intricate game of
It's an elaborate game of multiple choice.
yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
You know.
That's really great. Yeah. I was thinking that maybe we would play just a little bit of music here for a minute. And I saw this, the Quartet West with Paul Motion.
Right.
Um, and I don't know if this was a concert. Was this a concert or yeah? So this was a concert.
Yeah, it must have been live.
Let's play a little bit of it.
I
We don't have
never
to play
heard
right
that myself. Where'd you find that?
on YouTube. I typed in Quartet West.
Yeah,
How long was Paul Motion with the band?
we did a tour. Uh, Boy, I forget what year that was. It was funny too because Paul hated to travel, so he did this for Charlie. But Paul didn't like to. He would just go out with one bag. He took one bag. He took his cymbal bag, and he had his underwear and his toiletries, his cymbals, and everything in this cymbal bag. Every time he got to a hotel, every hotel that Paul went to, he would take a picture of his hotel room. And so that's what we did. And then we went on this tour, and it was a train tour. And we were in Italy, and we were in one of those cars that's got a whole bunch of seats in it, a compartment car.
Yeah.
Charlie had to get on with the bass. So he took the bass, and we took the bass, and we expanded it. We expanded it over the top of this compartment. And so the conductor came in. The Italian conductor came in and said that we couldn't have the bass in the compartment. And then Paul went off like a Roman candle, and it was like, I mean, it was like from a movie, right? So we almost got thrown off the train because the conductor got into this fight about the bass with Paul Motion. So we had a lot of adventures. so so it was on this tour that Paul did this, and this is a live recording. It must have been a radio check or something like that from a radio station in Nice.
Okay. Now, by the way, on YouTube, I got a message from, I don't know, I'm going to try and pronounce his name, but he wanted to say hello. Urs Weisendanger.
Uh-huh.
He says he's a friend of yours. He produced a cover of Music Prayer for Peace.
Oh yeah, that was for Quincy's company, Quest, and that was a project called Music Can. That was my second Grammy.
Okay, well, he said to say hello.
Hi.
Okay, so here I go on this a little bit. I picked a shorter tune. Wow, such a strong group.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a great time. And we were playing all the time, and that's what makes the difference. A
Yeah.
lot of the groups that people talk about that were great groups, they were playing. They were playing all the time, and it's hard to have that opportunity now. It's hard to find an opportunity for musicians to have the chance to play regularly.
Yeah.
And there's a special kind of energy that comes out of things like that, and you can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can. Yeah, I've heard a little bit of that, but Benny Maupin was playing a bunch around town for a while, and he was having the same band. He'd play the same music, which
Right.
was great because you really heard how the song sounded with different people and in a different moment of time, like a vehicle for it.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. I would just want to tell you before I get too far past the comments. Joyce Glasgow says hi. She's from Seattle. Um, Taylor Hatch, I guess he lives close to where you live. He's a guitar player who's now in Texas at college. Um, if you could name one thing, uh, if you could name one thing both on a gig, I don't know, get that, Taylor. Let's see. In a lesson, if you could name one thing on a gig or in a lesson, what was one moment that hit you so hard that gave you inspiration to improve your practice?
Probably playing every day with Pat Metheny and working with Doc Severinsen. I mean, he was really my teacher of discipline and practice skills. I mean, when the Tonight Show ended, we did bus tours with the Tonight Show band, and we'd go out and play for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and play the whole play the whole tune. When you used to hear the Tonight Show band, you'd hear 5 seconds, and then the tune was over because we always played during the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
When we went out and worked with Doc, it was very strong, very very consistency with the band, and we would travel by bus. So we'd do a concert, then we'd sleep over in whatever town we were in. Then we'd get up and we'd take the bus that we have till the next town. And Doc wouldn't even go to the hotel. We'd get to the town, Doc would get off at the hall, then the rest of the band would go to the hotel, change, take a little break, get a chance to get it together, and go to the sound check. By the time we got back to the hall, and were ready to do the sound check, Doc had already been there practicing for 2 hours. And so that kind of discipline on a day-to-day basis,
Wow.
really, you really learn about what it takes to be great. And that's what it takes. You have to stay with it, and you have to stay continuously, consistently on the path. And that was, and it was the same with Pat. You know, whenever Pat wasn't playing, he was in the dressing room practicing. And that's the way that you establish a rapport with your instrument. I tell people that my impossible dream, right? My dream is to be able to play spontaneously on my instrument whatever I hear, right? Now, in order to do that, you have to be in touch with your instrument to the point where you don't think about it. You don't think about it in your hands. You don't think about notes. You don't think about how to make an embouchure or anything else. It's like talking, right? I tell students that when you have a conversation with somebody, you don't think about where you're going to put your tongue to enunciate the letter T for the word the, because if you had to do that, you wouldn't be able to have a conversation. When you're playing music, it's like having a conversation. And so you have to be fluid and fluent on your instrument. So I would tell anybody that wants to play any instrument, it's the same rule. It's discipline. Uh, I tell students that basically what it is you derive freedom through discipline. You know, you just get so focused and you get it so much in your mental, your emotional hard drive that all of those things are natural. And when you hear Coltrane, and when you hear Charlie Parker, and when you hear Dizzy Gillespie, and all of these great players that are phenomenal virtuosos on their instrument, it's because that's what they do. They've been totally focused on that. So it's a very long answer, but that's my answer, you know.
That's a great answer. It is, and it covers a lot of things. Um, Otmar Ruiz is here, and he's a big hug to Ernie. He's my hero. When I grow up, I want to be like him. The
Amon,
coolest.
my hero.
Me too. Me too. The coolest personal sound on that instrument, plus the coolest of all personalities. Nothing but love and admiration for you.
Uh, Bye, Admiral.
Admiro, he is my hero too. He's just so incredible.
He's great.
Harold Quay is here, and he loves you. You're a very nice man. Saw you at the Baked Potato and at the
Oh, yeah.
Seabird Jazz Lounge with Alphonse Mouzon.
Oh, yeah.
And it was 2016, right before Alphonse passed.
That's right.
And he took some nice video, and it may be the last recording of Alphonse playing,
Wow.
as it was his next to last performance.
That's right.
Wow.
That's
Uh, Harold, you do remember that show, right?
well, I do. I remember just about all the gigs with Alphonse. We did a tour with Alphonse. Yeah, we did a Europe tour with Alphonse for like 3 weeks and it was a trio with Alphonse, Jeff Berlin,
Oh.
myself, and it was the loudest band I have ever played with in my life. It was incredible. I don't like to wear earphones. I don't like to wear earplugs, right?
Yeah,
Because when you play the saxophone, you have to be able to hear all of the overtones so you can place your notes in the right place pitch wise, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I had to wear earplugs on that gig because it was amazing. And Alphonse was amazing every night, you know. He was like he was like a wonder, you know. And it was always like that with him. Yeah. He was an amazing guy.
Speaking of loud, I remember when Ornette and Pat had that kind of
Oh yeah.
grouping. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when they came to LA, they were in that theater across from Capitol. That was a big theater. And I went there. So it was like, what, two guitars, two drums, two bass, or anyway, there was no dynamics as far as I could see. I couldn't get far enough away to like to hear properly, you know. It was really it was difficult.
Well, that kind of music is energy music, you know? And that's what you have to be ready for. Uh, and that kind of music can only happen in that kind of way.
Yeah, yeah,
Create that kind of energy softly. It's
yeah,
just it's a kinetic thing. It's a primal energy. They're getting in touch with primal energy. That's what John Coltrane did in his last days. When I was at Berkeley, I would go and hear Coltrane every night, and it was incredible. I mean, they would play My Favorite Things for 45 minutes and never play the melody. It was just it was just sort of like an idea, a concept of My Favorite Things, you know, and it was Coltrane and Rashid Ali, and it was an amazing thing, you know, and So McCoy Tyner was still playing. That was before McCoy left Coltrane, and so I was afraid of Coltrane. I was afraid of Miles. To me, those guys were like superhuman. You know, they were inhuman. I couldn't even I couldn't get close to them because what would you say? You know,
Hi. Yeah.
I sure like your music, or I mean, there's no way you can talk about that stuff. So I would go and I would sit down with McCoy at the jazz workshop in Boston, and I'd say, McCoy, that's amazing. What are you guys doing? And McCoy would look at me and he'd say, I don't know. And it was just all this energy. It was just raw energy. And I really enjoyed that. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy that music because it touches the primal source of where all of our music comes from. It's not real pleasant sometimes. It's not real pleasant to listen to, but there's something there that's very important about what our energy is and where energy comes from. So it's a definite that all of that music has a definite strong place. But I know what you're talking about with Pat and Ornette and all of that. I used to go to rehearsals uh, with Charlie when he'd rehearse with Ornette and Ornette's son, Donardo, and Don Cherry, and it was an amazing energy, you know, and it was very tight. What they did was incredibly tight, you know. So I loved that music, and then I love to balance it out on a concert, on a program. I like to play in that energy, but then I like to balance it out with other perceptions, with other energies. And then I think one complements the other, you know? And that's what I believe in. I believe in striking a balance, you know? But
Balance.
it's a
Yeah. Yeah,
stuff.
man. I love the word balance too, in all ways, in all applications. I think the concept of balance is great, and like you say, you have to have, and how many philosophers say, you have to have the bad to know the good, and you know, uh,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, you have to. We are a complicated balance. We're all, and what's interesting is we're all the same. We all have the same pieces, but it's the balance that's different in
Right,
each
and it's the
individual.
choices of what pieces we use that make our individuality. Everything is there. The universe is infinite. It is all there to be used. So then the thing that makes it individual is what you choose. A lot of philosophies they say it's like a giant cauldron. It's like a giant cauldron, and you take your bucket or you take your scoop and you scoop out of the cauldron what is yours, what works for you. And so different people have different perceptions, and that's all good too, because it makes the whole picture. It all helps make the whole picture.
Yeah, this leads me to a question. Let's see. I know what the question is, but it's kind of interesting to form it. Well, I'll start by saying a little anecdote. When I was on a gig with, I can never remember his name, one of a very highly known piano players here in LA. I was on this gig, and the first set I was miserable. I was trying to match him, and I'm not a stride singer. I'm not that style, right? And so on the break, I just decided, screw it. I'm just gonna sing how I sang. And
Yeah.
then it was magic. the
Right.
second set. So along those lines, uh, and what you were just talking about, scooping up who you are, um, do you something about I mean, I know how bands get put together. It's, whatever, it's whatever it is, fate, happenstance, choices, whatever. And there's different bands with different reflections of those different balances. Um, I guess I'm trying to lean towards asking you something about picking a band or appreciating a band for wide differences, but coming together to play, or a band that seems to be scooping out the same things out of the cauldron, you know. So I'm not sure exactly of my question, but somewhere.
Well, my rule is to not play with people that I have to tell how to play. So it's to get together with people who have the same concepts. We share the same concepts. And then we play together. So when you learn a new tune, of course you talk about of course you talk about details as far as the form and where you want particular hits or where you want particular strategic things. You get that stuff together. That's sort of the recipe, that's the ingredients. And then as you play a piece, then you let it evolve. And so it evolves and it changes. And sometimes things are not in the same place. Sometimes things are perfectly there. But to make the music, to to let the energy come through you, you have to be at a point where you're not concerned about details as much as you are concerned about the picture, the overall picture. So the people that I play with are people that we kind of agree on how things work before we play. And after a while, when you play with the same people, there's a style to what you play. It becomes a style. And it becomes the style of the perception of the people.
Yeah,
And and I think it's very, very important for everyone to be comfortable, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And then the music comes out. You can't be concentrating so much on trying to make the tune
yeah.
that you lose the music. And it's,
Yes,
you know,
yes, I can dig that.
and sometimes you have to play a tune. You have to play a tune for a while
Yeah,
until it clicks. But if there's something in it that you like, and if there's something in it that you feel, then you stay with it, and it grows. It grows into something. So I believe in that.
me
I
too.
believe in, yeah, I believe in getting something and working with it until it grows into something else, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I just had a gig this week, and well, I'm sure the last time I played with her, it was a long time ago. A drummer named Tina Raymond. Do you know her?
I don't know her. No,
She
I
went
have.
to Cal Arts, and she's head of the department now at Cal State Northridge.
Mhm.
She is one mother of a drummer. She's so great. And but I hadn't played with her, I'm sure, in 20 years or something. Anyway, as soon as we started playing, it was, there's great players, but then there's players that your rhythm, um, the your natural desire of how you do rhythm is the same as somebody else's. and
Right.
that was incredible. So that's kind of what you're talking about, right? And it was just it's astounding and it's delicious and you want to keep doing it that way. And I didn't have to say anything to her.
Exactly. And then it gets easy. There's a flow to it, and then it's like there's a song to it. There's a melody inside it,
Yeah.
and that's when you know that you're making music, that you're creating together.
I love that. There's a melody inside of that. That's really
There's a giant
yeah.
melody. There's a giant song in the universe. Just like people talk about, rainbows. Rainbows of harmony, rainbows of harmonic frequency, and all of these things. There's melody that goes through things, and you can hear tunes in the forest, or you can hear tunes from electronic frequencies. Sometimes when I'm alone, you hear melodies, you hear sounds, and it's like choirs sometimes. Sometimes it's strings, sometimes, but there's an ethereal vibration of music that is a part of our essence, and that's what we come from. And then it's just trying to keep in touch with that. We let our heads get in the way, you know. We start thinking. And we start thinking so hard, and we start trying so hard, and then we cut ourselves off. That's what we were talking about before. It's that balance. you
Yeah.
know you have to know that we are here as a part of something that's larger than we are. We are a tool of something. I tell people that music is God singing through us, right? And our responsibility as musicians is to be the clearest channel for that voice to come through. So that's why we practice. You practice and you learn about your instrument, and you learn about fluidity, so that when this voice comes through and you join, that there's the least amount of resistance as possible. You're not hung up about playing something on an instrument so that you miss the message that comes through. And
Yeah.
it takes a while. We go through all of these chapters in our lives too. When you're a kid, you want to be the best, you want to win the award. It's all a big football game. You want to be first string, you want to be this, you want to be that, because that's the way we've been taught to learn. Everything's a competition. At a certain point in your life, you recognize that there is no competition, really. I mean, nobody can be more you than you can be. So if you have any responsibility at all, it's to be the clearest you that you can be. But we have to go through a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I was 40 years old. I was 40, 45 years old before I grew up. Because the system sets us up. The system sets us up to be in competition with each other, and to be, and to always be grappling and pulling and pushing, and all of these things that we think we have to do to be successful. you know then at a certain point in your life, you kind of have to reevaluate the whole concept of what it is to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's all of those, but we have to go through all of those other phases.
Yeah. 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 When I think about, lessons that I had in my life, there were some lessons that seemed to repeat themselves about 3 or 4 times. But I would notice how similar, like the people in the lessons were, it was almost like they were coming out of the same creation. But each time they were a little better, but the problem was still there. And finally it would go, oh, I get it. Okay, I get it. And then it wouldn't repeat itself ever again. But um
But see, that's the journey, right?
yeah, yeah.
You get a lesson, and you keep getting it until you learn that lesson.
Yep.
Then you learn that lesson, and you know what happens? You get a brand new lesson.
Exactly.
So here, and, that, and that's how we go through life, you know. Like
Yeah,
life is experience. Life is experiential.
that's what it is. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and we have all of these experiences so that we can handle the next experience.
Yeah, exactly. You know, uh, something I sometimes I noticed, the younger, less experienced students, not necessarily younger, but less experienced, okay, so they'll come to me at this level, let's say. So that we do the work and then they're up, they get here. But it's almost like I always explain it like there's like a little door, you're at the ceiling and you're at the door. Anyway, they think they get down on themselves just like they when they came in, because they don't notice that they went through this. They think they suck, right? And it just blows my mind. It's like you don't even remember how you were a few months ago. You were here, so give yourself a pat on the back and then open the door on the ceiling and you'll see the new room that you have to grow through.
That's right. And it's a process of that all the time. It's
Yeah.
growth, it's plateau, it's boredom,
Yep.
fear,
Yep.
and you continue, and then you come to the next level of growth. And then you reach the next plateau.
Yeah.
And so we're always stepping through that. It's always strata, you know, of consciousness in that way. And that's what we tell the students, it's like they say, well, what do you do about burnout? What do you do about artist burnout or creative burnout? And I always tell everybody, play through it. Don't stop, keep going. When
Yeah.
you get bored, be really bored. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And through that, something else comes out of it, and you come to the next step and you grow to the next plateau and you get really bored, you
Yep.
know. All the boredom means is you learn that chapter.
Yeah.
Boredom means is okay, well, I know about this, I've learned this chapter, now it's time to turn the page. And really something will happen in your life that will turn the page anyway. Life is like that. Life will turn the pages for you, you know, because we're all a part of this expanding universe. This is the nature of the universe is to expand. That's what we're going through now. That's what we're going through economically. That's what we're going through cultural. That's what we're going through politically. All of these things that are happening because as a culture we've sort of arrived at a particular point and we're really confused and we don't know what to do next. So we're just bubbling around in all of this chaos and all of this unrest because we've come to the end of a certain period, a certain era in our society, in culture, in time, and we don't know what to replace it with. You know, I call it critical mass. There's like a thing that happens universally where you get to a point of critical mass and then the whole thing shifts, you know, and we're right at the edge of the shift now.
Yeah.
And there's all of this social unrest, there's all of this political unrest because we've gotten to a point where all of the stuff we've done for years and years and years in the same old way
Yeah.
doesn't work anymore.
Yep.
And so it's got to be replaced, you know. There has to be a shift in what our priorities are. And so that's what we're living in. And it's a real special place that we are in at this particular moment in time as the artist, you
Yeah.
know, because our energy, what we do is a part of the balance. You know, what we're dealing with is something that is on a different consciousness level than the majority of our culture and the majority of the laws and rules we've learned to function in, you know. So it's very important that we all stay on our path. It's very important that the artist stays clearly on his path now because we are helping balance all of this chaos and unrest. And it's not easy, you know. When you look around and you read the paper and however you get your news information, it's really scary. It can be really scary.
Absolutely. Um, I'm kind of blown away by your comments, actually. I mean, it's not, these things are things I talk about a lot with people and, view the same way, but how you put it was really, uh, it's definitely the truth. I feel it, that the balance, we are important for the balance. And
Correct.
it touches on so many things, actually touches on a little bit of grief for me, and I'm sure for other people if they actually heard that, because um, just as an example, one thing, it's like for all of your life, our culture has been saying, well, how much money are you going to be making? It's like you should probably be a teacher, right? Because yeah. And but it's like, what's the value? And even your dearest friends or families, they have a point of view that comes up over the years that is like, well, what's your value?
Right.
Okay, so you can sing or play. Well, that's great. But what is it value? Are you going to like, you're going to be okay when you're 86, like financially or but and there's I really think that that's in a lot of people, like really interwoven. So something that you said, that really the purpose of art, to me, what you said, the purpose of art is very holy, really, because it's really relating to the reality of life and as we know it.
Right.
There must be a balance. And actually, so the other thing is reflecting on the last few years, what I've viewed is a shitload of artists being out there, on online and in life. And I feel like the pandemic has kind of opened the door to a lot of people's vision. Like, oh God, there's artists everywhere, and we really need it. It's valuable. It's, you know,
Right.
um, I mean, I've interviewed over 400 people, but that's not even the thing, because there's always the musicians all over the planet. But just realizing that the artists are here so much that
Right.
that we just in general have been somewhat blind to that. And I think obviously we are reflecting what's going on in the
Correct.
planet.
Correct.
So it's really wonderful what you said. I just love it.
Well, we're part of something we're part of a whole, right? So the universe is always in in the operation of self balance. You know, Asian philosophy calls it yin and yang. You know, the Greeks called it cause and effect. You know, it's what comes around goes around, karma or whatever you want to call it. What you think is what you create. It is done unto you as you believe. How energy moves is always in that flow. The tide goes out, the tide comes in, the sun comes up, the sun goes down. All of this energy is in constant flow. And so where we are now is we're at a point of the return of this tide, right? Or whatever you would want to say, you know, it's what is it that Marianne Williamson says, you know, we don't want to try to sound too woo woo, right? You got to stay away from the woo woo thing, or people
Yeah,
won't believe you and all of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So here we are at a point where all of the arrows, all of the signs of our culture and society are telling us that it's time for us to understand each other. It's time for us to communicate with each other, because if we don't, it's going to be reaping time. You know, you reap what you sow. And at this particular time in our culture, we have sort of reached the peak of our sowing, you know. So now there's all of this chaos and there's all of these things because it's time for us to change. And the change is to level level out our energy. You can't and balance. You can't run on anger, hate, and greed into infinity. We've had that experience. We've experienced that. We've done anger, hate, greed, victimization, all of that stuff to the point where it's time to level it out. Or it's just going to go to the next stage, which is not going to be too pleasant for us. It's not pleasant right now, but this is our opportunity to see that we can wake up. If we wake up, we can change. And some of us are, and some of us are doing it quickly, and some of us are doing it slowly. And for me personally, I believe that we have come to a point of change, you know. And so we're witnessing that now. And that's the thing that's difficult, is witnessing it. You know, it's like watching a car wreck. It's like watching it's like watching a tornado. It's like watching a wildfire. It's
Yeah.
like watching a hurricane. It's like watching all of our uh, uh, ice sheets melt, because that's how the earth is corresponding to our energy. The earth is a living thing. The earth is a living being that we are a part of. The things that we have created in our unbalance, right? A disbalance, or whatever the word might be, these things that we have created to throw us so out of balance as beings is affecting the earth now. Now, that's the earth. What are we a part of? We're a part of a universe. There's planets, there's stars, there's all of this stuff that's connected because it's one thing that's affected by what's going on now. So that is the importance of what we're a part of, you know, and that's why it's time that for these things to balance. So how we do it is a step at a time. You know, we got here in very small, insidious steps. We can change in small steps the other way, but we have to do it. You know, it's just like things that are going on in other parts of the world that had been the same for centuries. You know, the big guy comes and he takes from the little guy
Yeah.
and he victimizes the little guy to get what he wants. But this time, what happened? The big guy came to victimize the little guy, and everybody in the rest of the world came to the aid of the little guy. That's never happened before. So that's a sign. That's a signal that we as beings are changing, you know? And so you look to these things and you say, okay, the door is opening. So we try to see what's going on around us as signs of what we envision, you know,
Yeah.
because when you go, I've traveled all over the world 500 times. I've been to these places. I know these people. I play concerts in all of these places. People are great. People
People
are
are great.
People love music. People love to be together. So let's do that for a while. you know, do that. We did all this other stuff. We beat each other up. We took everything from each other, and we've done all of that other stuff. And all we've created is a great, big, gigantic mess. We've done everything else that we could do besides behave ourselves. You know? And now, okay, we tried all of that. We tried all of that. It didn't work. All right. Let's how about let's we try this. What have we got to lose, you know? We got one foot over the cliff anyway. We might as well give something else a try. You know, then you start thinking of John Lennon, right? You start thinking of give peace a chance and stuff like that, you know. We just went off.
We did.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Maybe it flipped out.
I might have flipped out. I might have said the wrong word.
So now let's up. Now what? That's
I
a
don't
picture.
know. Yeah.
You there?
Are you there?
Hi. Sorry, my
Ah, there
computer
you are.
like left. Can you
Yeah.
hear me okay?
Sure.
And then we saw a photograph up.
Yeah.
And then you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay.
So it's quite a
All right.
thing. It's quite an interesting time we're living in.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody was listening.
I know. I was thinking that, Patricia. I was thinking like, oh, I wonder why the computer shut down at that moment. It was too heavy, man.
Yeah, you never know, huh?
You never know. Oh, I mean, I could talk like about this stuff forever. I just really, I love this kind of thinking. It makes sense to me, and I know there's a lot of people who it makes sense to. Um, most of the people I know, but you know, every now and then you come across somebody who just doesn't even see that at all, the things you're talking about. And It is what it is, you know.
That's right. That's
Um, this let's see. The interestingly enough, this Bangladesh man reached out to me. He just found me online. He loves jazz, and he found me and he saw me speaking, and he decided that he wanted to give me some meditation. And so he reached out to me, and we've been having great talks. But he's a lovely guy, and he right from the beginning he said we're the same as the plants and animals and the earth and the universe. It's all one world. It's not separate pieces, you know.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And we're all a part of each other.
Yeah. And the idea of responsibility to be the best you can be, because we're all tied in and we affect everything. And I really like that idea a lot, you know, because it gives you that's an ability. That's something you can accomplish, you know,
Right.
as you said before, in the music, you know, and in everything.
And when you start dealing with it, it's always in small steps,
Yeah.
you know. But we all do what we can in our way, in our language, in our place, you know. And when you all do something, then it adds up. When
Yes.
you all do something positive in some way, it all adds up.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on, and that's what music is. You know, music is giving a positive gift to our culture and our earth, you know, and to the universe, because it's all energy. It's all energy. So what we're doing with our instruments, what we're doing with our voice, which was the first instrument, you know, all of these things are helping balance this imbalance that we're living in right now. They can't really go on because it's uh, basically, there's that lady again.
Yeah, there's that lady again.
We're out.
What is
Are you
this?
there? There you are.
What is this?
Is good? You good?
I'm here. I can't see you, but I am. Oh, there you are.
We can see
I've
you.
What are you seeing right now?
Now I can see you. It's funny. I've never experienced this particular problem, and it's probably, I'm guessing, internet something. You
This is
know.
a photograph of the woman again when your picture went away.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Oh,
That's
that's
you.
you.
The photograph of me. Yeah. I mean, it looks like we're still online, and yeah, we're still online. We're just it's just being a little bit
Good.
interesting. Um, you know, my friend posted you with Pat Metheny and Charlie Hayden. We could look at that a little bit.
That would be interesting. I've never seen that either because we never recorded. This might
Yeah.
have been in Brazil or someplace.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, and Nika Reto says hello to you.
Hi, Nika.
Let's
Thanks from all of us. From all of us, Charlie Hayden, Ernie Watts, Paul Wertico, Nick Matheny, Domo Arigato. Thank you.
Wow. That's a big crowd in Japan.
Yeah, that was an annual thing that they used to do called Live Under the Sky. And that tour was Pat's band, Miles Davis, and Sun Ra. Sun Ra
Jeez.
Orchestra. And,
Wow.
I got to hear them every night. And
Wow.
that we did a saxophone project that they put together during this tour with myself and Michael Brecker and Bill Evans, the saxophone player, and Stanley Turrentine.
Huh.
We did the music of Don Grolnick. Don Grolnick had written this beautiful album for Michael Brecker called Hearts and Numbers, and he had orchestrated all of his tunes for four saxophones. And we did that one performance, and they did one recording, and that I think there's some YouTube on that too. And this
There
was
is.
that was a very special thing too. And none of us knew that that was going to happen.
Huh.
We just called around. We were all playing with different bands. They got us all together, and we had a rehearsal, and we went out and we did this concert. So that was interesting. You
Wow.
never know. That's why you have to practice all the time,
Yeah,
because you never know what you're going to have the opportunity to do. So you have to be ready all the time.
That's the jazz part.
Yeah, that's the jazz part, and that's what I tell students. It's like whenever you play, you need to be playing like know who's out there. You could have four people in the audience, but you could have one of those four people that can change your life. Excuse me. So that's why you always got to be ready.
yeah,
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 always.
yeah. You know who told me that was Senator Eugene Wright.
Oh,
When I
sure.
first, yeah, when I was first in LA, the Money Tree had this like, which doesn't happen anymore. You had you were there for 2 weeks if you were the singer, right?
Right.
And so he was playing. Every time I turn around, his eyes were closed, And so one time he said, "I know you think I'm not watching you, but I'm watching you." And he said you have to play like you're in Carnegie Hall every night.
Hmm.
That's it, you know. And that was a good lesson.
And that was the hardest thing because I'm really bad with jet lag, right? It
Uh,
takes it takes me 2 weeks to get over jet lag.
uh,
So we would go someplace, and by the time I got over my jet lag, we were going to another place, and then I would get fresh jet lag,
oh
right?
boy. Yeah,
And so you get someplace and you've got this terrible jet lag. You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you feel great. And then by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like roadkill.
yeah,
And that's when you're supposed to go for the sound check and the concert. So it's like you're totally out of your mind. You're so tired you can't stand up. And then you're supposed to get on the stage and be brilliant. And it's like, that's when you really have to get with the spirit of me, with the spirit of music. Music energy
yeah,
is its own energy.
yeah,
And if you are in touch with the energy, then the music plays itself.
yeah, yeah.
But you have to be you have to be ready. That's another lesson for the kids. That's why we practice all that. That's why we study all the time. Because when you're dead on your feet and you still have to be creative and productive, these other things have to have the opportunity to come through from whatever you would call it, your subconscious or your superconscious or whatever. But half of the gigs I've done have been jet lagged forever. It's just
That's hard, man.
that's the
Wow,
way.
that is really hard. I understand
Yeah.
that.
Well, when we
One time I was, oh, sorry.
when we got to the COVID thing,
Yeah.
uh, we toured all the way up. I was touring. I was touring with Corky Siegel, my friend that I'm staying with, and we're doing some concerts here together. And we were on a tour, and we had just finished in the Virgin Islands, and then we went back to Florida, and we did a couple more concerts. We came here to Chicago, and we were supposed to go and work in Minneapolis, and then that was February. Was it February the 13th, the
The
third, or
last gig we did that actually happened was Friday the 13th.
Oh.
Friday, the 13th of
March.
March?
March.
And then that's when they declared COVID.
Oh,
right? So we
right.
couldn't do our last gig. We went home.
Well, we went here.
Yeah. And then we were off for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I finally got over my jet lag. It took me about 4 months, and then I got up one morning and I went into the kitchen and I told Patricia, I said, Patricia, I think I'm resting. I forgot what it felt like to be rested.
Oh God.
Well,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was really something. Another thing we did was the November before COVID, we were traveling and traveling, and so we figured we had some time at home. We set up our Christmas tree. So we left our Christmas tree up in November. So by the time we got home, we could celebrate Christmas and the tree would be up.
Good
Well,
idea.
it's a fake Christmas tree, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But what happened was after we got home and it was COVID, we decided to leave our Christmas tree up. So our Christmas tree has been up for since then for 2.5 years. And so we buy little stuff and we keep putting stuff on the Christmas tree. The lights start to burn out. We put other new lights on the Christmas tree is growing into this this monument, But leave it up as a monument to hopefulness,
That's nice. I like that.
something to look forward to.
I love that.
We got our Christmas tree up from 2 years.
That's so cool. I love that. I love that. We leave our Christmas trees up. I mean, our Christmas lights up around the house.
Yeah.
They're white, but I just said to my husband, I just want to keep up the lights. It's a nice feeling. It's like it's that, but in your living room, with your Christmas tree up and adding to it, wow, that's even more intense.
There's a way to work with everything.
I wanted to tell you about this time I was singing at the LA museum, the art museum, and this was in the old days when it was outside. It was really nice in the courtyard. You probably played there, um, but anyway, that day my body was really not feeling good. It was nervous and it was had this weird energy to it, and I got there and I was like, this is bad. I don't want to sing like this. I can't sing like this really. And then I thought to myself, because I've done a lot of spiritual and philosophical work over my life, and I was familiar with the idea of me as a being outside of my body. So I realized I thought about it and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can operate from outside of my body, no problem.
Yeah.
I always do. And at that moment, it was kind of like tying into the music energy, what you said. It was tying into the universe energy, and I was fine. And then I sang, and it was magical. It was great. The band was good. Everything was good. So it's this point of view of I really like, a lot of times people will ask the artists that I'm talking to, how do you get through the moments where you're crashing and burning in various ways, either you're on the road or you're just experiencing this burnout. So it's great to hear from you that you look for what feels good
Right.
and you move through it, and movement, movement. It's all about movement, isn't it? Right? And we're in the moment, and the past is the past, and it's just a memory, basically. So,
Right.
um, I really appreciate your point of view on this, and I think I think others appreciate it too. And I want to mention before we go, because it's been just about 2 hours, and I really, first of all, I really want to thank you for hanging out, and I really appreciate your point of view. And I've never really gotten into this deep a conversation with you at all, so I'm just overjoyed. It's just been great. You're in my thinking. It's great. I love it. And thank you, Patricia, for your help. Um, the off-camera person. And I wanted to mention that if people are in Los Angeles, that you're performing again the second concert with pianist John Mayer. And this is, I just have to tell a funny story. So this one person, she said, she's coming to the concert, and she said, "Wow, I wasn't aware of John Mayer, and he wrote all these great songs." And she started quoting these lyrics and stuff, and I said, that's actually not the John Mayer who's coming. So our John Mayer is great, straight ahead jazz pianist, and he and Ernie are friends and cohorts, and they have an amazing quartet with Roy McCurdy, and this time it's Will Lyle on bass, and it's in a house concert near downtown LA, and it's a really nice situation, isn't it?
It is. It's a very nice environment to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Sunday, June 12th.
That's right.
And can you believe that I can't be at this one either, because I'm going to be on the East Coast?
Well, Cathy, you
Well,
just have to start building your
that's right.
schedule around us.
We'll keep
Apparently.
we'll keep doing it until we'll keep doing it.
I guess so, man. I'm like, when John told me the second date, I was like, you're kidding. What's the odds of that? Like me missing both of them. Anyway, but that is an Eventbrite. You can find it on my website or John Mayer's, JONMAYER. And I forget, we titled it, Jazz Combustion. That's the title of it, Jazz Combustion. Nika wants to know when you're going to be in the San Francisco area.
We're the closest to the San Francisco area that we're getting to is Reno Tahoe. We're doing a concert with Diane Shore for Reno Jazz.
Oh,
And it's the 20th
And it's
and the 21st in Reno, and then Tahoe is the 22nd of August.
Right.
okay.
Right. We're gonna be up her way, and that's a beautiful area, So it's a nice little day ride if you want to hop on the California Zephyr, and you can go across through the High Sierras, and then you're right there at the lake, and it's a nice day ride. So that would be something
Beautiful.
fun for people to do. We've got a couple of other things. Is it okay if I mention a couple of other things?
Absolutely. I'll try and write, or you can always send me stuff and I can post it afterwards too, like it in written. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm working with my quartet on July 16th at the Baked Potato, and
Oh,
that's with Mark Seals from Seattle on piano, and Bruce Lett on bass, and
cool.
Rob Leatherbarrow on
That's
drums.
the Ernie Watts Quartet.
That's our Ernie Watts quartet.
Oh, that sounds great.
And then the August 4th, we're working at the Farmers Market down off of Fairfax.
And the
Oh.
Patrice.
And then we've got a gig with, I've been working with Patrice Rushen, and we've been doing a bunch of things, and we're going to be that's August 27th, and we're doing the Jazz Festival at the Baldwin Hills Mall.
When is that again? Sorry.
August
August
27th.
27th.
Wow,
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Yeah, it'll be fun. The group is really great. It's Edwin Livingston on bass and Marvin Marty Smith on drums.
Ooh,
Marvin Smitty
is that
Smith
a free concert at the Baldwin Hills Mall?
probably is. I think it probably is. And
It's in a public place.
we've been
guess.
working a lot with Patrice lately. and we just did Baltimore, the
Keystone Corner.
Keystone Corner in Baltimore.
Baltimore.
That was a redo of a project that I was involved in with her the year before, and then I had a heart attack at the first set on the gig
On stage.
on stage, so I missed the rest of the week.
So they rescheduled it.
So
She's frozen.
Yeah, they rescheduled
It fell out again.
Yeah.
It fell out again.
Okay.
Let's see if she comes back.
Are you still there? Are you still there?
Maybe not.
Maybe it turned off. Maybe it has auto off.
It might. She might have set it up for 2 hours.
Internet again is going weird.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't see you, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We
Yeah,
can hear
it's
you.
fine.
We just
Clear
don't
as
see
a
you.
bell.
We just don't see video.
Well, I guess the computer or the internet has said, okay, that's enough.
Cathy, I got a question for you. Is there any way we can get a copy of this? I really liked how it went.
Yes, I think you asked for a copy.
Whoops, now you went out again. Wow. Okay, there's the picture. She'll be back in a minute. Cathy? Oh, now we can see you. Hello.
Yes, I think you asked me if you can get a copy, and I will send you a link to this. And also, I will be archiving it, so you can actually download the archive if you want.
Oh, that would be great. I'd love
Yeah.
to do. I love
Yes,
how the conversation went, you know.
me too. I really loved it. It was great. Very, very wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, we look forward to meeting you
Yeah,
someday.
we'll see you as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the next one that you guys create there, I'll be in town. Maybe I should tell John when I'm going to be in town, or be out of town. Thanks, Ernie.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful time in Chicago.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Cathy.
Cathy.
Bye, Patricia. Bye, Ernie. Thanks a lot.